It's Monday, July 25th, and this is now on HNN.
You will be held accountable if you violate that trust.
Breaking news, we're getting new details regarding charges of fraud and public corruption.
$2 million in cash is being made available to 100 small business owners in the Asian and Pacific Islander community. Details are just ahead.
COVID and anti-AAPI hate. Both hit the AAPI business community very, very hard.
Get away, get away.
Everyone's talking about this video. A woman is charged at by a Hawaiian monk seal, which should serve as a reminder that there are rules in place to protect us and the animals.
These stories, plus an update on the globe's hot spots. Heat waves on the mainland and in China are still causing problems. Details coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon. We want to get started with this dramatic live picture coming into the HNN Digital Center. You can see this is from our sister station in Dallas, Texas, KTVT. I'm told several homes have caught fire there in this area. It is known as Balch Springs, Texas. That's outside of Dallas. Again, these are live pictures coming into the HNN Digital Center. You can see several homes there engulfed in flames, a large plume of black smoke going into the air. I understand this started from a brush fire, and you can definitely see the remnants of it there. Ashley, a huge scorched piece of earth there next to those homes. Fire crews are on scene. Our sister station is reporting that 10 structures have been impacted here. Again, this breaking news coming to us from outside Dallas. Several homes are on fire right now as we speak. We will continue to follow this very much still developing story here at This Is Now.
Meanwhile, we have breaking news here at home. Federal authorities announced an additional indictment in a Big Island housing bribery case. Dylan Ancheta has the details.
You'll recall last week a former Hawaii County housing official pleaded guilty to fraud after taking nearly $2 million for approving affordable housing credits. Scott Rudo, 55, pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit honest services mail fraud, and today we're learning more about the case and who was involved. Rudo worked as a housing specialist for the Office of Housing and Community Development from 2006 to 2018. The crime happened from 2014 to 2021. Court documents said Rudo was responsible for reviewing and recommending which developers receive affordable housing credits.
Mr. Rudo was a housing specialist. He was a public official. He was employed by the county, and his role was to assist the county in solving its affordable housing crisis, in providing affordable housing, working with developers to ensure that affordable housing was provided to the citizens of Hawaii County. Now, during the course of the conspiracy, and the conspiracy lasted about 6 years as it's charged in the indictment and the informations, Mr. Rudo abused his position, abused his public official position by soliciting and accepting kickbacks and bribes.
Rudo operated 3 affordable housing LLCs to sell land and credits to 3 co-conspirators that were just identified at today's news conference.
They enriched themselves to a tune of more than $10 million. Another individual by the name of Rajesh Budhabhatti was also charged last week by a separate felony information. He was charged last Thursday with the same conspiracy. He will appear next week, I believe August 1st, to enter his plea to this conspiracy charge. And then on Thursday, as I said, a grand jury returned a federal indictment naming the final 2 individuals, both attorneys practicing on the island of Hawaii, a Gary Charles Zamber and a Paul Joseph Sula Jr.
We'll be breaking down the full scope of this story on later editions of Hawaii News Now. We'll also be updating this story on your digital platforms. For This Is Now, I'm Dylan Ancheta.
The suspect in last Friday's sword attack in Waikiki was in court today. Through his attorney, 46-year-old Jason Walker pleaded not guilty. He's accused of cutting off a man's hand during an argument outside the 7-Eleven on Kalakaua Avenue by Enna Road. He's been charged with attempted murder, and his bail has been confirmed at $400,000. A witness told us that Walker is a 7-Eleven employee and described him as a kind worker. We reached out to the 7-Eleven corporate office, but they declined to confirm if Walker was an employee, only saying, quote, "We are cooperating with HPD and have no comment at this time." Now, the House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol has held 8 hearings so far, and these next couple months are expected to be busy for members as well. For more on that, here's Hawaii News Now's White House correspondent, John Decker. Now, John, what's next for the January 6th committee?
What we know from the committee chair and vice chair is that they intend to have another committee hearing, at least one more, in September. That's all based upon new evidence the committee has received and uncovered over the course of the past few weeks. They are still debating as a committee whether to subpoena or invite members of former President Trump's cabinet to testify behind closed doors, and even whether to invite the former Vice President Mike Pence or the former President Donald Trump to testify behind closed doors. But I wouldn't bet on that. In any case, the investigation by the committee continues. They are running up against a time deadline, and that is the midterm elections, which now less than 4 months away. So their work clearly is winding down from the place where it was several months ago.
You know, after all of this, John, is it likely that the Justice Department will bring any charges against anyone in former President Trump's inner circle?
Well, the DOJ has already charged 855 people who took part on the attack on the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. The million-dollar question is whether the DOJ will bring any charges against anybody in former President Trump's orbit, based upon what has been uncovered during the January 6th committee investigation. If there were charges, one likely area that the DOJ could be looking into is a charge of a conspiracy to overturn the election of 2020, conspiracy to defraud the United States of America. That is one area that they could pursue based upon the evidence that they've already uncovered. But we're a long way from that, and the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, has not indicated where the DOJ is in their investigation. But last week he said no person is above the law.
All right, switching gears now. President Biden tested positive for COVID last week. How are his symptoms now?
According to his physician, and every day the physician to President Biden has provided a letter indicating the current status of the President of the United States. He has indicated today that his symptoms have largely completely resolved themselves. So what does that mean? Normal blood pressure, normal temperature, and other things that were associated with his COVID diagnosis from last Thursday have now resolved themselves. He remains in isolation. He will remain in isolation until Wednesday at the very least. That's when he will actually take a COVID test to determine whether or not he still has the COVID in his system or whether he tests negative. Assuming he tests negative, and that's a good assumption based upon the progress that he's made, he could then begin to do his work back in the Oval Office as opposed to the private residence at the White House, Ashley, where he's been doing it since contracting COVID last Thursday.
John, have his doctors said what variant the president has?
It's the BA.5 variant, the most common variant now in the United States. It is a variant that is highly transmittable, and there's no indication exactly where or from whom the president contracted the COVID-19 virus, but the good news is that he's making a very quick recovery.
All right, some news coming out of the vice president's office. 13 high-profile aides have left. What's going on there, John?
That's right. They're high profile. They are high level staffers and various reasons for different departures. Some just simply want to, after a very demanding period of time working for the vice president, working for the federal government, want to return to the private sector. It's more money in the private sector and certainly less stressful. Others, have talked in recent reports that have come out about an environment that they did not like in terms of working in the vice president's office. The most recent individual to hand in their resignation is the domestic policy advisor for the vice president. But over the course of the past few months, the vice president has seen her chief spokesperson decline, her communications director also depart, domestic policy advisor, and also her chief of staff. So some very high-level individuals departing the staff of the vice president even before the midterm elections, which is very unusual.
All right. What You News Now's White House correspondent John Decker, thank you so much for keeping us updated on everything politics.
And this programming note to pass along. Join Hawaii News Now tonight as we take an in-depth look at the front runners in the race for Hawaii's next governor. The Job Interview is an hour-long, no-holds-barred forum where we take a deeper look into the issues facing the state. It airs tonight at 8 p.m. on K5. It will also stream online at hawaiinewsnow.com. Well, new at noon, the deadline for some small businesses to get some help to their bottom line from the feds is quickly approaching. Let's turn things now over to our Washington Bureau reporter, Nicole Newman, with more on how all this could impact the AAPI community.
As Democrats work to revive a slimmed-down version of the Build Back Better Act, some small business owners say they're having to turn to other sources to seek financial help to help lessen the impacts of the pandemic.
Chiling Tong of the Asian and Pacific Islander Chamber of Commerce in Washington says AAPI small business owners across America were heavily impacted by COVID's economic downturn.
What have been the biggest hurdles facing AAPI small businesses?
COVID and anti-AAPI hate. Both hit the AAPI business community very, very hard.
A report from Stop AAPI Hate found there were nearly 11,500 hate incidents reported between March 19, 2020 and March 31st of this year. As the pandemic unfolded, a UCLA report found 233,000 AAPI small businesses closed from February to April in 2020.
We've made a $2 million pool available in grants in amounts from $10,000 to $50,000.
To help counter the financial effects of the pandemic, Tammy Halevi from Reimagine Main Street says AAPI small business owners are getting a boost. It's through the AAPI Strong Small Business Grants, a partnership with multiple organizations with support from Meta, known to most as Facebook. 40 AAPI businesses who launched during the pandemic will receive $10,000 cash grants. 60 AAPI small business owners who launched prior to the pandemic and survived will receive $25,000 cash grants.
That's a one cash payment.
If you're an AAPI small business owner, you can apply on the National Asian and Pacific Islander Chamber of Commerce website. The deadline is July 26. In Washington, I'm Nicole Newman.
Time now for Unraveling Your Traveling. If you're planning a trip to Europe, it really might be a good time to do it. The U.S. dollar is the strongest it's been against the euro in 2 decades. Here's CBS News travel advisor Peter Greenberg with more on that.
Well, it is on a parity with the dollar, which hasn't happened in about 5 years. In fact, the U.S. dollar is at its strongest level against many foreign currencies in the last 20 years. So airfares won't be adjusted. Hotel rates will probably not be adjusted, but everything else will be, meaning it can't be adjusted for the locals. It's what they're paying for it already. So a taxi ride, a restaurant meal, a tube of toothpaste, any local good and service all of a sudden becomes a huge bargain for Americans. I was in Turkey, where they've devalued the lira, about a week and a half ago. I went shopping at a supermarket, and I bought items that would have cost me at a checkout anywhere here in the United States about $120. My tab was $18. I mean, that's power of the dollar right now against many foreign currencies.
Japanese visitor traffic is slowly creeping up. Howard Dykes tells us where we stand.
We got over 1,000 arrivals both Thursday and again Friday. The first time that's happened, Japan flights bringing so many people here since before the pandemic. It still doesn't match the mandatory optimism of the marketing contractors, but 13% of normal beats 11% of normal, which is what we saw last month. International arrivals from countries other than Japan and Canada are twice as good, more than 2,200 arriving here on Friday.
The brutal heat bearing down on much of the mainland is showing no signs of letting up. More than 60 million people are under heat alerts today, including much of the Northeast, Central Plains, and Pacific Northwest. Now, for folks in the Northeast, things are expected to cool off some as a cold front and some storms move in. Quite a different story, though, in those Central Plains. The temperatures are expected to be well into the 90s through at least the middle of the week. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, they could be dealing with those temps even longer, with them expected to build through the week more than 10 to 20 degrees above normal. Now to China, where the country is also dealing with a major heat wave. Let's turn things over to Stephen Jiang with more on that and also an update on the COVID situation there.
This heat wave in China has been unrelenting and widespread, hitting many parts of the country from the southeast, including Shanghai and its surrounding areas, to Guangzhou and Hong Kong down to the south, and also all the way to the northwestern region of Xinjiang. As of Monday, 67 Chinese cities have issued their highest level red alert, meaning temperature in their locations could surpass 40 degrees Celsius in the coming 24 hours. Not surprisingly, many people across the country trying to escape the heat by flocking to beach resorts out of town, undeterred by the challenges of traveling in China these days, including the potential risk of getting stranded because of the country's very strict zero COVID policy. Because right now there is also a resurgence of COVID cases across China, with the health ministry reporting more than 600 locally transmitted cases on Monday, alarmingly high by Chinese standard. That's why we are seeing lockdowns and mass testing making a comeback across the country, including in Shanghai, where they just went through a brutal 2-month lockdown starting in April. That city reopened on June 1st, but already for the past few weeks dealing with the stubborn new outbreak, with the authorities in Shanghai already ordering several rounds of mass testing for much of the city's 25 million residents. The next round is taking place Tuesday to Thursday, when temperature in that city is forecast to hit as high as 38 degrees Celsius.
All right, thank you, Stephen, for that update. Now let's get to that video everyone is talking about. A monk seal charging a swimmer at Caymanas over the weekend. You can see that video here. Now, officials say this person was warned about getting into the water, and there were signs posted in the area. The video everyone is talking about shows just this: the woman swimming about 20 to 25 feet off the shore. Once her head pops up out of the water there, the mother monk seal charges at her. Bystanders were able to pull the woman out of the water. Witnesses say she had some injuries, and I believe it was to her face and upper shoulder area is what EMS officials are telling us now. We have, of course, seen incidents like this play out in the area before. Remember this last year at Caymanas as well? A mother monk seal did not like it when another adult got a little too close to her pup there. You see what she did? Showed her teeth and started barking, even used her flipper to cover baby. Yeah, so this has happened before. Those monk seals can be aggressive, that's for sure.
That's right. And it's unclear if the woman from yesterday's incident will be cited. Officials remind the public to stay at least 150 feet away from mother seals with pups because they are obviously protective and can be dangerous. So remember this: last year, NOAA fined 2 mainland visitors who touched endangered Hawaiian monk seals. They were ordered to pay $500. And there's a number of ways to report people getting close to the seals. We have all those links and phone numbers attached to this story on our HNN digital platforms. And don't forget now, Rocky, the mama seal, and PO8, her pup, are still out there at Caymanas, so leave them alone.
It's cool to see, but you got to watch at a distance. You can't get close like that. It's really not. I do not like seeing that video. Not at all. All right, guys, we've got to switch gears now. Taking you outside, get a check of your weather. Here's Guy Hoggy.
starting on Wednesday, a passing disturbance will lighten the trade winds. They'll be in double digits, but mostly under 20 miles an hour until Friday. So Wednesday, Thursday going to be a little sticky, and then the trade winds fill in on Friday, especially windy over the weekend into the early part of next week. So with those light winds, we've got some weather changes as well. So today and tomorrow, breezy trade winds, beautiful conditions, nice comfortable humidity levels, a few windward and Malkus showers. And when the winds lighten up starting on Wednesday all the way through Thursday, higher humidity levels. Going to be a little sticky on Wednesday and Thursday. And we'll get afternoon clouds and a few afternoon showers, maybe even some spotty downpours. But those showers will not be widespread. However, these showers might help with those very dry leeward areas, right? And then trade winds come back to breezy levels starting on Friday. In fact, at this point, it looks like we're in for a windy but gorgeous weekend.
Thank you, Guy. Okay, let's see what the internet is talking about. And this is video caught on camera that you need to see. A whale breached and landed on the front of a small boat near Plymouth, Massachusetts early yesterday morning. Now, no one was hurt, and there were no major damage to the 19-foot boat. The Plymouth Harbor Master says boaters should try to remain at least 300 feet from whales to minimize potential interactions whenever possible. But of course, they are wild animals, and they are unpredictable.
And just huge. This really shows the scope of how big a humpback
Oh, yeah.
or a whale is right there when it slams against the side of a rather large boat as well.
Incredible. Check this out too, you guys. The Northern Lights danced across the skies of Washington State over the weekend. Now, this is a time lapse of the spectacular display taking place over the city of Ellensburg. Now, the Northern Lights, also known as Aurora Borealis, are caused when a strong solar flare and coronal mass ejection erupt from the sun. Solar storms last week allowed the lights to be visible over Washington and other areas that rarely see this phenomenon, and officials say colors lit up the sky as far south as Northern California. Amazing.
Right. Very beautiful. And now to a tourist attraction that's getting a lot of attention in the UK. Here's Tina Kraus with more on that.
Near the seaside in southern England, a house is turning heads because it and everything in it is upside down.
The upside down house is for inverted photos, so when you flip the photos, it looks like you're on the ceiling.
It's an optical illusion that begins with striking just the right pose. The magic happens when you flip the photo.
When you're actually doing the poses, you're like, oh, yeah, and then when you actually take the picture and flip it around, it's really interesting to see how it looks.
The inverted experience has spiraled into a social media sensation, with upside-down houses being built across Asia, Europe, and the U.S.
They go in and they take so many good photos and they love it. And all our advertisement is done through social media.
In the UK, visitors pay $6 for a 20-minute tour to angle their way toward all the surreal snaps they can take.
I thought it was great fun. I didn't expect to be doing aerobics and gymnastic displays.
Creativity runs wild in this house, encouraging guests to look at life from a whole new perspective. Tina Kraus, CBS News, London.
Anything for the gram.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if my vertigo could handle that. It could make me a little dizzy, I think.
But you're not actually upside down.
It's just a perspective,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Like, it's going to throw you off. Like, I don't know. You know me. I can't walk and chew gum or anything like that. All right, guys. That's going to do it. One day down. That was Monday. 4 more to go. We can do it together. Keep joining us for This Is Now every day at your lunch break. We'd love to see you and chat with you. Ashley's back first at 4 for those afternoon updates right after work. Rush home and get those on KHNL first at 4. Keep checking your HNN digital platforms for updates throughout the day as well. Have a good one.
Aloha.